got an exciting video for you today. As we all know in sales, it's vitally important to know what you are selling. And no, I'm not talking about the product, service, and all the in-depth details of it, but what is that prospect really buying from you? Maybe it's self-assurance. Maybe it's money. We all sell money, a lot of us. Um, but what's that deeper benefit? You may have heard it, the benefit to the benefit. So I wanted to hop on, film this video, and talk about 7 of the most common millennial buying behaviors and drivers and values that they look for when they're buying a product or service. We'll start off with number 1. First is self-expression. Millennials definitely love to express themselves and show their uniqueness. This is why we see a lot of custom products or services. They like to, we like to feel coddled isn't the right word, but just well taken care of. And self-expression, being able to buy products or services that really show who we are in a unique way is really important. Another one is respect. It's another value. And this is all about being heard and being understood, because I think, especially if you've seen any of those news articles about millennials, a lot of folks don't understand this generation, which is a lot of what my work comes out of. But it's all about respect at the end of the day. I think that's a common one for most of us. Third one here is flexibility. This might come as a surprise, maybe it doesn't, but millennials like the ability to shift and change and just be really fluid with everything. I mean, as long as we have our smartphones, we could have a little more, be a little more disconnected from the desk, if you want to put it that way, and be able to work from wherever we want. That's very important to us, and travel is important. So being flexible and being able to do that is very important to millennials. Fourth one here is convenience. And there's no shock to think of this one if you think of the rise of food delivery services over the past decade. That's for a large part millennials. Just, I want it delivered to my door. I want it easy, intuitive, and that's shaped definitely by the internet of being so fast and quick. So convenience is very important. The fifth one here on my list is value alignment. So this is interesting. Millennials are not as motivated by money as opposed to the baby boomers, for example. But really, what does a company stand for? What are their values? And are they in integrity with something I want to be aligned with? So, and that goes for working for companies, buying and being a customer of companies. So values are highly important. So I'm going to bring those up front and center with millennials. 6 on my list is health. I think when just seeing our older generations deteriorating, so to speak, or maybe they didn't take care of themselves as much. And a lot of that is just ignorance. We didn't know at the time that things like cigarettes and all these other harmful toxins in our diet were harmful. So millennials are willing to spend the money on their health, on their nutrition, which is a key value for them. Finally on my list, number 7 is unique experiences. So this is some of that travel aspect, that excitement, that glamour of, personally, I definitely like experiences rather than physical gifts. Like if someone wants to buy me tickets to a sports game, I'd much rather have that than some trinket, so to speak. And that's a very universal millennial feeling. Now, I wanted to share today about how to interact with millennials, how to communicate with them. This is a really, really important one. And, everything comes back to communication. I think that's where some of the generational misunderstandings start. I mean, that's where everything starts, right? With communication. When you're dealing, especially with sales, of course. And this is from my checklist, the millennial prospecting checklist. I talk about keeping it casual. So us millennials, we definitely like to keep things very low key, not to use too much lingo, but just to make things casual. I don't think of any other word to say it, to keep it casual. So, there's a few different ways, and I go into it on the checklist, but that happens in conversation. So to be more colloquial, say, use a little bit of slang, or maybe say things just how you would speak, essentially. I know there's a lot of folks who, maybe if you send an email, for example, and I'll get to that later in this video, but it's I think of it as like corporate email etiquette, right? Where everything is very much punctual and grammatically correct. And this is a big one for me because I love proper grammar and things like that. That's just a personal thing. So I've had to learn to be more informal with that. And then contractions, and this is a really deep one. Instead of saying like it is, you say it's, or they are there. Things like that, just to make it more smooth, more fluid, like you're having a conversation. The other point I have on the checklist is with clothing. So you can tell I'm just wearing a regular button-down shirt and some khakis. So more, embrace that business casual. And in general, there's a new word for you, athleisure, which is like when people wear athletic clothes, but not to the gym, to like Starbucks or something. You probably see this. Yoga pants, maybe like jeans and a hoodie, something like that. That's something that millennials love. In a business setting, it's not the most professional, I'd say, but I often wear a collar. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I wear just like a nice solid color t-shirt, like a polo, like a red polo or something. I think I wore that on a previous video or one of my videos, but that's important. Like if you show up in a suit and tie, it's a little off-putting to millennials, so something to keep in mind. And the third point I have under keep it casual on the checklist is with technology. So this is the big one. Of course, millennials, you probably guessed this, they prefer text or instant messenger like Facebook Messenger, Instagram Messenger, even LinkedIn, the Messenger. So that is definitely the preferred way to reach out to millennials and to connect with them. I'll share this quick story. I had a guy connect with me on LinkedIn, and he asked me about my story. He said, "Oh, you corporate world in Boston, all the way to a entrepreneur in Wyoming. What's the story there?" So I shared a little bit about it, and we were going back and forth. And then I'm just reading it here. I have a screenshot. He goes, "Oh, that's great. Thanks for sharing. Let's talk and see how we may help each other. Call this number." He puts his phone number. And that is not the way to connect with anyone. I don't want to make an example out of this guy too much, but absolutely not for millennials. It would be more, continue the conversation. Then maybe the warm up for that phone call or that appointment. So that's it. Again, these are from my checklist, which is the Millennial Prospecting Checklist. I've got a link there in the description here. I'll also put it in the comments for you to get your copy. Absolutely free to you. This time, I'm talking about taking it social. With millennials specifically, it's really important to ensure your sales process is share-worthy, something they're going to want to refer business back to you on. And I'll talk a little bit about that later, but these are from my checklist, the Millennial Prospecting Checklist. I'll go over these in a little more detail here. Got some people hopping on. Number one is sculpt your online presence. So millennials are all about the online presence. It's very important to us. So you want to make sure your website, all your social platforms, maybe if you have a blog or a podcast, are all in place, are all looking nice, all branded. And that's before you take it to a one-on-one meeting. So I'm on some networking events where people push the one-on-one meeting, and I get it. I'm one who likes one-on-one meetings, maybe a unique millennial in that respect. But a lot of millennials want to check you out first and see what you've got on social media, on your website first before they get to that one-on-one. So if you're leading with the one-on-one meeting. It might be a turnoff to some millennials, so be careful. Make sure you're pointing them to some places where they can get acquainted with you first. I think that's a good practice for millennials especially, but for anybody in today's age. The next one is to get vulnerable. So when you're vulnerable and really share your story, some of that deep stuff, it makes your brand more approachable. So someone's more likely to get involved. And like I talked about before, millennials are very value centered. So when you share that and examples of how you live into those values, into those desires that they have, it's going to pay dividends for you in your business. And the third one is, of course, embrace social media. It's no surprise. The millennials are a very social media oriented generation. So, someone like I shared earlier here on the Take It Social piece. This is where millennial referrals happen a lot, where they want to share a brand that they're using or they're a coach they're hiring, things like that. That happens on social media now rather than face to face. It does happen face to face, but a great way to keep in touch with us millennials, since we like to move around the country, is social media to keep in touch with people. So you want to make sure that it's in order. Like I said, it's also just embrace it. It's here to stay, at least for the foreseeable future. And millennials will make sure that's happened. We got LinkedIn, which is growing in the millennial space, especially in the business world. Of course, Facebook is great, Instagram, things like that. There's so many different tools. Quora, Reddit, the different forums that millennials ask questions on and talk to each other about. So that's all. You want to take it social with your business. Again, these are from my checklist, the Millennial Prospecting Checklist. I'd love for you to have a copy. It's whymillennialsbuy.com. You can get your copy, put your email in there. I'd love for you to have one. You deserve to have one. I'll put the link here in the description and also in the comments.